All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. My name is Shashank Kalandri. I'm a senior data analyst at Nordstrom, as you guys probably know. This is a live stream where I normally do a Q&A, answering questions that people might have about the world of analytics. Today, we actually have Yusuf, someone who I met a couple of weeks ago, who showed me one of his projects, um, where he was creating like a thing to track prices on Whole Foods. And then we got on a call, and he explained to me the process by which he decided to do this project, why he did it, how he made it, and it kind of like is the perfect process for making a project. A lot of people ask, how do I, get ideas for a project? Where do I get data for a project? And Yusuf solved a lot of those problems in the exact way that I would have solved them as well. And so we'll give everyone a quick second to put in some comments, and then we'll get started. So Yusuf, in the meantime, why don't you give a quick introduction about yourself, kind of like your background, what do you do now?
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently a senior at a state school here in Pennsylvania. Um, my major is marketing, and I have a large technical background. So I've been very familiar with computers for 10 to 12 years. And I recently got into the data science space by, watching your videos, watching some other data science videos. And, anybody who's trying to get in the data science space is trying to, build up their portfolio, especially if they don't have that computer science background. So I've been here trying to do that. And one of these projects is now my portfolio. And I guess today I'm here to share it and give your audience, kind of some tips, some motivation, and, some understanding to how to actually construct a project, that has meaning and value rather than, creating a project just to check something off. So hopefully today we can do that, answer some questions in the audience, and move on with that.
Perfect. Exactly what we're looking for. All right. So I'm not seeing any questions, which is good. It means that we can go ahead and just get started. And I think what Yusuf said over there about making a project with some meaning is what I always try and tell people, right? So I'll go over my quick project philosophy, then we'll get started with your project, Yusuf. So, really common question in the data science space right now, and a question that I receive all the time is, Shashank, what is like a good project? Where do I get data for a project? And I always tell people my projects are always based on things that I like. And I think the most interesting projects I've seen are ones based on things that people like. Let's back it up for a second to ask ourselves, why do we even do projects, right? There are two major reasons you do them. You do them, one, to practice your skills. And then two, you do them to, in an interview, you do it to have something to talk about with the interviewer. Usually, this is in lieu of work experience for people who are just getting out of college. And so, and one thing I should be very clear about: recruiters generally do not check projects. That is very rare. Um, you should understand, I guess, like, and we'll have probably a video where I do like the mindset of a recruiter, which I feel like could be an interesting one, where basically, they're like going through applications, looking for qualifications and stuff like that. So once you get past the, the basic recruitment process and get past the resume check, then you'll have a chance on an interview, which is where you'll show people your project. And because of that, right, you don't want to show people the Titanic data set or any other canned data set from like Kaggle that is super common. I'm not saying don't use the Kaggle data set, just don't use any of the really common ones, because there's a really good chance the hiring manager will have seen that data set a billion times already. There are five other people who've already done the exact same project, and you're not showing any initiative beyond just copying and pasting code. So the what I like to tell people, right, is try and pick a project on a topic that you're interested in. So for me, it's usually cars. There's a coworker I had where she actually finished a PhD thesis and did a data science project. I think it was a visualization, or it was a what do you call them, photo recognition project on the different shades that different makeup stores had, and where gaps were in like the shades of like different foundations. Super interesting, and something that gave a lot more for us to talk about than just here's my Titanic data set. So without further ado, let's go ahead and see what you got, Yusuf.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Just to kind of like touch base on what you're saying, I completely agree. I think definitely projects should kind of revolve around, what you're passionate about. So if you're really passionate to do this, jump in this data science journey, I think that definitely you should kind of incorporate anything that has nothing to do with data science that you would normally do in your life. Are there questions to that? Is there anything that you could potentially solve, through data? And that was honestly something that I found. I'm about to just share my screen here. Continue. Okay, so see if I can just do the window. All right, let me know when you guys can see.
Let's see. There we go.
Okay, cool. So let me just put this here in full screen, continue what I was talking about. So yeah, for me, I would say that nutrition, diet, fitness is something that I'm interested in, outside of the technical
Oh, Yusuf,
space.
1 second. Would you mind doing a control plus like 2 or 3 times?
Yep, sure, no problem.
One more. One more. There we go. Yeah.
Cool, awesome. So um, for me, diet, nutrition, fitness, this is something that I'm interested in. I am a shopper at Whole Foods. I also have an Amazon Prime membership. And I'm entrepreneurial, so I'm always trying to, save money. I've ran a business before. I understand what it means to, want to have low operating expenses and always want to save money and, optimize to the max. So as a Whole Food shopper, as a Prime member, I want to be able to, use my Prime membership to the best of my ability possible. And, by doing that, actually going on the Whole Foods website, it's pretty hard to do that as a Prime member because they don't give you enough information, to kind of filter things that are on sale out in a way that, kind of tells you everything that's on sale and kind of tailors that more to the customer. So I said, okay, I didn't start this project and say, okay, I know every single point. As you guys see, there's expanders here. There's about this app, receive insights, show insights. I didn't, plot this all on a paper and say, okay, I'm going to do this one by one. It actually all started. I was having trouble understanding, how to even start this project. For the majority of this time, I mean, this might seem like a great project, but it actually took me a month or two after my first initial project, which we can get to that if we want, if we have time. Um, it took me a lot of time to reach, a starting point. So I tell everybody in the audience, just start doing something that has to do with data so you can eventually build that to a project. And the first thing that I started to do was to actually start scraping Whole Foods data. I said, okay, I don't know where to start. I don't know where I'm going to go with this. I don't know how I'm going to, implement any machine learning or anything, but I'm just going to scrape data. I looked at a video, saw how to scrape Whole Foods data, and that started in a Jupyter notebook. And then I said, okay, I want to see if I can implement this into like a script. And then I implemented it into a script, and I was able to. And while I continue to talk, I'm just going to go to the About This app so you all can read and see what this app is about. But yeah, so I took that scraping into a script. So pretty much it would scrape the Whole Foods data of the Whole Foods that is near. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, Whole Foods is a grocery store that sell organic food near me and all across the country in the United States. Um, and so it would scrape the data of on sale items at Whole Foods. So on sale items at this Whole Foods is pretty much items that are only on sale, discounted. And if you're a Prime member, an Amazon Prime member, you get a discount that's even further. So again, as a Prime member, I want to see, what has the highest discount percentage. The website is not going to show that. And the only way you'll be able to know that is by actually aggregating, the Prime member price divided by the regular price of the actual item. So I built a scraper that would aggregate and scrape all of the data from each category of on sale items only. Now, this is not just all items on the website. This is only on sale items. And it would scrape that and it would put it into a data frame. And from there, I said, okay, this is cool. So this works as a script now on my own computer. Now, how can I implement this into Streamlit? And for those of you who don't know, Streamlit is a API that allows you to create front-end web apps using Python. So you can honestly do almost anything with it. You can visualize, you can, do some ML, you can, show stocks, you can do a lot of stuff on it. So I wanted to see if I could implement this script on to Streamlit and then visualize using graphs. So of course, I would assume most of you know about Python libraries that allow you to visualize graphs. So the first start would be, you enter your zip code for this special stream. Since I know Shashank is in Seattle, I did this beforehand. This takes about 2 minutes to scrape. So I inputted that zip code, and then that'll give me it'll use my script that I wrote, and it will scrape all of the data pertaining to the zip code that I entered, and then it'll show it in this expander. So from there, this is pretty much going to show a data frame, which has a style on it with gradients. We can get into the styling later, but it'll show all of the live data that was just scraped. So for this example, this is 5 minutes ago, and I have it, so it shows you the date. And then it pretty much shows everything perfectly structured. Now on the website, it's almost always a mess. I'm not sure who the data engineers at Whole Foods are, but sometimes items might be in different areas. So a lot of the scraping actually took me over a month in order to get it to structure properly, to kind of mitigate all of those edge cases, and make sure that the data set is structured in a nice format. It's also rounded too, just for ease of use. So pretty much, we have all of these categories and the structure is nice. And this is pretty much aggregated from the Whole Foods website. Um, so there's 926 items on sale. It shows the location. If you want a full screen view, you can always go full screen, and you can see everything. So that was the start of that. And I said, okay, we have a structured data set. So now let's try to get some visuals here. So now this is nice for me because if I'm, before I'm going to shop, this is coming back to my problem statement. Um, you know, we have a nice insight here about understanding, what is Whole Foods putting on sale the most, and I've seen this is pretty similar between store to store, this distribution that we see right here, but it's pretty interesting, because I see that, beverages are the most thing that's on sale, then pantry essentials, then snacks. So now, we're taking my problem statement and I'm actually solving a solution. I'm able to see, um, you know, a problem that I had actually be fixed at hand. And again, Shashank, if you want to ever cut in and ask any questions in the middle of what I'm saying, feel free to. I don't want to feel like I'm talking the whole time.
No,
And if
you're
it's going
totally
too
fine.
long,
Okay, so
as
let's
well.
I guess let's give it a quick pause over here, right, and kind of go over what you've done so far, right? Because people enter and exit the stream, right?
Yep, yep.
So my understanding of this whole process, right, and for anyone that just entered, what we're doing is we're talking about what constitutes a good data science project. And in the thumbnail, you'll see I have, is this the perfect data science project? And actually, I would argue it is. At the end of the day, like perfect doesn't mean like, oh, you're doing some like super mega image recognition, OCR, it's not about
Right.
technical
Yep,
proficiency, in my opinion, beyond a
definitely.
certain point. It's about did you think of a unique problem? Did you find your own data? I'd say the own data part is a really key part of that, in my opinion, because
Yep,
a lot of times in data science, you're going to have to find your own data. And did you create a good user interface with a solid backend to actually solve that problem? I
exactly.
call that basically the perfect data science project. And the reason that user interface is really important is because it gives you something to show a hiring manager. You can physically show it to them. You can go ahead and explain it to them, and it will drastically increase your chances of getting hired for sure. Because most people don't come and do this in an interview, to be 100% honest.
No,
So
definitely. I completely agree. And something that really happened, that really helped me, on Discord, there's a lot of public. You know how you have that community where you have public discords that are like sponsored by Discord. One of them was Learn AI Together. This Discord has a plethora of people who are actually in industry, in corporate, they have experience. And one of the people that are in that Discord actually suggested to me, if you're gonna make a project, this is to Ian, by the way, shout out to Ian. He said, if you're gonna make a project, you want to have a project that has a data set that's constantly updating. You don't want to just have something that's static, always staying the same, because when something's constantly updating, you kind of have more leisure, more leeway to do things with it. Now, it might seem a little complicated. How am I going to, use a data set that's always updating? But, you have to break things step by step. And that's the epitome of how to make a good project. When I was going through each step of this project, it did not just take a day, it did not just take a week. A lot of people, they want to come in their projects and say, okay, I'm going to do this project this week, then I'm going to do the next project this week, and I'm going to do a project for every single algorithm. I mean, you have to find a way to make a project that you actually look forward to working on. You look forward to like actually spending 6-7 hours on. Now I know that might not be possible for most people, um, trying to come into this space, but if you can find a passion, you can find something to just start, that's going to give you that drive. I think that's going to be very helpful, not only for you, but also in interviews. And it's going to allow you to be able to explain everything from the root, in comparison to, I find a project that someone else did, I fork it, kind of edit some things, and then I just put it on my resume. I mean, it'll look good from the front end, but like, you know, did you truly learn anything? Are you truly making use of your own time? And is this something that you actually want to do? But aside from that, I'm going to continue here with these visuals.
actually, Yusuf, I had a question. Instead, would you be able to go to the blog post section and show us that?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So the blog post that we have here is, this is a static website I have hosted on GitHub Pages. For those of you that don't know, you can easily host a kind of portfolio website from GitHub for free. There's a lot of themes and templates you could do in order to do that, which is what I did. Um, so this is a blog that I created for this project, and it pretty much kind of shows the rundown of how everything works. You can, by the way, select previous queries of other people's zip codes. So say, I queried Los Angeles 4 hours ago. I can go to the Los Angeles query and I can look at that data and it'll aggregate and show everything. The other feature, there's a generate shopping cart feature. So do you want me to run down the project through the blog, or do you want me to just show the blog?
Just show the blog right now,
Okay.
and I guess I'll give a quick explanation to why I think this is really important.
Okay, yeah, sure. So this is the blog. I just kind of break everything down, and then it's always good to have diagrams if you have any NLP or machine learning or recommendation systems, which we'll get to that. This is also part of this project. I do have diagrams here for that as well, and I did also take some EDA from the notebook just to show any insights that we got. So
I would also say, so anyone that was attending my Saturday class, which there's another class this Saturday, so be sure to check out that one. It's a free data visualization class, but if you didn't attend part 1, you can still attend part 2 and understand what's going on. But one thing that I explained in that I think is a good takeaway in general is that there are 2 types of analysis you can do, right? There's exploratory and explanatory. Exploratory basically encompasses all the stuff that you're doing over here initially, where you were going through the data, exploring it, trying to see what are all the insights inside it, and going from there, right? It's really tempting as a data analyst, as a data scientist, to go to your the people you're presenting to, right? In this case, it would be a hiring manager, and show them your exploratory analysis, show them all the work that you did, because you want them to see, look at all of this work that I did. Usually that's almost never a good idea. You want to show people an explanatory analysis, which is kind of what this blog post is, and what it's what this blog post is. It takes every section of your project and breaks it down into an easy bite-sized chunk with a picture and a paragraph that anyone can read, anyone can understand. And it basically, it's showing all the work you did without showing them literally every line of code, because most people won't care about every line of code. Now, if you get a particularly technical manager, they might start asking you questions about it, and that's kind of the point of the project. But that's why I think this blog post is specifically one of the great things about this project.
definitely. And I do think that blog posts actually kind of help you reiterate what you have done, because a lot of times when you build a project, then say you want to take a break for 3 days and you come back to the project, you're looking at all of these lines of code and you're like, wait, hold up, like I did this, like this is like maybe I should make a blog post so I can reiterate everything in chunks. So when I choose to go back or choose to speak about this project, I kind of have a structure to each part. So definitely, I do think it is very good to do something like this.
So
I will go back.
Share a link to this blog post to the chat.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Could you send it on the? Okay, perfect. Got it.
Yep.
Let's see. Copy link address. Whoops, I sent it right back to you. All right, guys, there we go.
So I guess I'll just go back into each expander here. What do you think?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we have everything aggregated. When you're doing EDA, this is pretty much would be the EDA that I did in the notebook. However, I added some styling to it, some coloring, made it look nice. So we have the items on sale by category, and then we also have it by discount range. So this was a feature that I created. It's called binning. Hopefully most of you are familiar with binning. So pretty much we take the discount ranges of each item, which is something I also aggregated. It's not something that Whole Foods gives you. And this is also only going to be possible once you structure the data and change all the data types so everything is fitted perfectly, or else this would not be possible. So once you have that, you take that feature and then you create bins out of it. So once we do that, we can actually see, and I want to explain why this is important. If I'm feeling like I'm on a budget and I really want to shop, but I just want to know what's 50% off at my store. So I'll just click this, and this is going to be everything that's 50% off for Prime members at my store. So I'll see, okay, let's see, meat, what meat is 50% off around my store? Chicken drumsticks, more chicken drumsticks, chicken, produce. And then maybe I say, okay, maybe let's do the 40 to 50% off. So it'll show me everything that's 40 to 50% off. And hey, I might make a better purchase decision because of this aggregation. Now you can search these things on Whole Foods, but the difference is that it's not going to be all aggregated so you can make quick decisions on the fly. So this is something that helped me. And if I want to have different ways to find certain items, I do have other graphs, scatter plots that are strictly by category. It's not the most visually appealing in terms of the color, but I mean the color is not what matters. It matters more of if I'm looking for strictly beauty, this is going to be everything that's on discount, on sale for the beauty section at my store. So we can see here, this is the 28% off section. This is more of the 18% off section. So if I want the highest discount, this looks nice. This is about 33% off. So we see, it starts at $18, but for Prime members it's $12.14. So that's pretty much the visualization and aggregation. Again, it's also really cool because you can see like the majority of items that are on sale. This is very nicely like color orchestrated, clearly. We can see that like 20 to 30% off and 30 to 40% off is the most prominent discounts that most Whole Foods do, and you'll see the same distribution amongst like many other stores as well. And this is also by company. If you happen to, let's say I like Siggy's yogurt and I just don't want anything but Siggy's, I want to see if they're on sale, I'll click it and I'll see what's on sale by them, and I'll be able to make a nice decision. But again, this is just data aggregation. This is not, this would be more of like the data analyst data analyst side. But in order to make it more data sciencey, I wanted to like have a shopping cart generated, which is still more, rule based. However, the recommendation system is something that I wanted to implement because when I was checking out, this is another problem statement I had, and these problem statements that come as you start working in a project. So I'll be at the Whole Foods, I'm checking out, I have all my items, and I'm like, okay, I'm working on a project. Like, what else could I do? And then I think to myself, okay, like, how could I be recommended items that are similar, right, to what's on the conveyor belt right now? Like, how can I be recommended something similar that's new? I get to try it, but it's also on sale and it's also on a discount, and I also get to save money, make use of my Prime membership.
It's exactly what I tell people. At the end of the day, like as you do the project, more questions come up naturally, right? Like, and what you said at the beginning, I think, is probably if you were to get one thing out of this entire live stream, right? That's the one thing you should get is just start doing something. If you have no ideas, right, which is totally fine. Like any creative pursuit, you can't force ideas on at will. Just start doing something. The act of doing something gets your brain thinking and gets you like into the mindset of like, okay, like where am I gonna where do ideas exist? That's another thing, right? Like I think what you said is this is where we're getting a little bit like philosophical with it, right? When you go to because you're doing this project, right? When you go to Whole Foods, you're not a passive consumer of your life for a good section of our lives. Right? When we do a lot of stuff, right? We're kind of just passive consumers to it. I go to the grocery store, I go get groceries. I'm not like paying too much attention to it. Maybe I'm listening to an audiobook, but I'm living my life in a very passive way. But when you go to Whole Foods with this project in mind, you have this very active mindset of like, okay, how does this work? Why does this work that way? How can I make this stuff work better? And how does it fit into my project? And that's kind of if you can kind of like start thinking like that, that's where you start getting a lot of project ideas very quickly. When you start just thinking about how does everything around me work,
Definitely. And
cool stuff. Yeah.
A thing that I
think people want to know how the data was scraped. If you could go into a bit more depth about that.
Yeah, sure. We can definitely do that. I think another thing that I just want to add before I enter the data scraping, which we can actually go here to GitHub and kind of pull up the source and take a look at that. But a thing that I did want to also add is that I think it's good to have that kind of if you have that innate feeling of always asking questions and always wanting to like wonder things and project things in the future and be analytical, but you find it hard to be technical about it, I think you really have to force yourself to just start and become technical and like look things up, because those kinds of people are very valuable. There's a lot of people who try to force themselves to ask questions, and those questions won't really have that much value. But those who like kind of have that innate natural feeling to do so, but are not as technical, to me are more valuable than those who are super technical. They know the documentation from A to Z. To me, so again, this is why I stress like it's always good to always put your foot forward and start. In terms of the scraper, we can go here and this is the scraper. So the scraper is 550 lines of code. Seems like a lot. So this started in a Jupyter notebook. I didn't just start typing in
Yusuf, could you control plus 3 times?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So this started in a Jupyter notebook. And then once everything was clean and properly being structured in a notebook, I had to figure out how to use the sub process module in order to put it on Streamlit and things like that. But pretty much, um, so it starts out, um, you know, seeing if I'm on my local environment or if I'm on Streamlit's environment, because obviously this file has to be good for deployment on my local environment so I can work on it and tweak it, and also has to be good for the deployment environment so it could be on Streamlit. So that's the beginning. And then pretty much it takes in the input of your zip code as a sub process, and then it pretty much runs the sub process with the zip code that you inputted, and that zip code that gets put pretty much in the input on the website. So when you run the script, it's pretty much opening a Chrome web browser that's headless, and it searches through every single category of Whole Foods at that zip code that you searched. And the first thing that it does is pretty much just aggregate, all of the elements of every item in each category in lists, in multiple different lists. And then I know for those who are super into software development, they hate the global variable. But for me, when I was doing this, I was like thinking, okay, this is how I want things to be structured in my head. And then I would take, the information from my head and I would put it on paper. And I said, okay, the global variable is, what you use for how I'm thinking in my head. Now, of course, there's definitely a bunch of other optimized ways you can do this, but that wasn't my problem, trying to find the most optimal way. I mean, this is still optimal, but so pretty much from there, it takes everything and it puts it in a nice clean dictionary, and the dictionary has each column. So pretty much in order to get the data frame structured, I start with a dictionary. And dictionaries, as most of you know, they easily get put into a data frame with one line of code, which is right here, from dict to d, right? And then the browser gets closed. And then we have some manual data cleaning that takes some things and cleans them. These were just things that every iteration that I would try, I would see, discrepancies in the data and stuff. So over time, this does the job for some and most items. And then this is the data wrangling spot. This, took me probably 2 weeks to really get down. But pretty much this goes through whenever there's like an element that's like not on the right structure. So there might be an item that's like the sale price is in the same line as the prime price for one item because it's only on sale for prime members. So sometimes the structure would be different for the indexing. So pretty much, this is just one big, it tries to run code for one way of indexing and structuring. And if that doesn't work, it runs the second way.
Yeah, that's
As an
I'll
extension.
be making a web scraping tutorial at some point in time, and this is the kind of stuff that you have to always worry about with web scraping.
Yeah.
Like,
But I had a fun time doing this.
yeah,
It really made
it's
my brain work. I was like thinking I'm like a rocket scientist, like coding up all of this. But yeah, so from there, once that works and we test it through the Jupyter Notebook, I mean, this is just tons of testing right here. I mean, there is no way that you will be coding this in one go without testing. And it works. Like that's impossible for me,
Mhm.
at least. And then from there we have more, more wrangling, because from there, like we have everything structured, but everything is like in string format or object format. So now we want to get rid of like, dollar signs, periods, in order to make things numeric. And another thing that I did want to add is that something that was really hard, which was, I believe it was somewhere around here, but pretty much items, like a problem that I had was that items were not always like, $4.35. Sometimes there would be like $2. It would be like 5 for $2 or like 6 for $3. And in order for me to turn a string into numeric, I had to do some like real hacky like coding at that to make sure that it actually works. And I believe that was right over here. Yeah. So where it would go to string, and another thing is really good. You have to comment out everything so you know what part. Like if I didn't comment this out, I'll probably have a hard time explaining this right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the string 2 for 5, like 2 mangoes for $5, for example, that turns into an integer 250. So pretty much I had to figure out to parse, 5 as a string by itself, then 2 by itself, right? And then cast those as integers. And then once I cast those as integers, you want to divide them by each other, and then it turns perfectly numerically. And this is if it exists in the data. So again, you have to think about like your intuition, like how you want things to be, and then you have to figure out how you're going to put that vision in code, which is going to take you time. Again, another cool Discord is the Python Discord. You can ask people questions and they'll help you. Stack Overflow, YouTube, there's always a way to put your vision on code, which is what I did.
And we have a couple of questions over here.
Yeah.
One over here is, my God, that code. How many years of experience do I need to complete this kind of project?
6
So
months.
I have a couple of, I have my own answer, but Yusuf, how long have you been coding, would you say?
6 months. Now I know people are gonna be like, "What?" Maybe all right. Maybe it hasn't been 6 months, but honestly, I've been like kind of like dipping my foot in and out of the water of code. So the first time I was ever introduced to code had to be Java when I was a senior in high school, but I completely failed and I never wanted to code again because Java. I just think Java sucked. I was like, wow, like, I don't know what this means. What is a for loop? I'm confused. I hate this. Right. So I went into business because I'm always a business guy, and then kind of dibbled and dabbled a little bit with JavaScript about like a year ago, and then I was like, no, this is like it's not cool. And then I got into Python last summer, and I was like, all right, I think I might get the hang of this. Like Python's like really simple. And then since I would say since about June, July, watching your videos, watching Ken G's videos, Chris Knott's videos. I mean, there's just so many amazing YouTubers that give information out for free. I mean, the information is out there. You just have to go and kind of like put in the work and have a reason to put in that work. And you'll be able to do this. I mean, this seems like you look at all this code and it's like, wow, like this looks like 3 years of experience, 5 years of experience. I mean, it's really not, but it's a lot of time taken in to
Right.
aggregate everything in just like one file. So yeah.
And I would also say, like, there's a joke I heard a while ago, right, which I think kind of explains how a lot of code can look a lot more complex than it actually is. All of coding is basically for loops and if statements. And that's not too far away from the truth. A lot of code is just for loops and if statements. Not at all to take away from what Yusuf has done over here, but it because of the length, it looks significantly more complicated than it is. A lot of this is, okay, I tried, like I'm looking at this, right, and a lot of it is, okay, I scraped this thing, the data came out this way, but this exception is not being handled. So let's go handle that exception. Then this thing doesn't happen, so let's go handle that exception. And then going step by step and programming it. Incredibly impressive.
Right.
I think I want to make sure that people, just because they see a lot of text on screen and they see 600 lines of code, they don't think that they can't do it as well.
Right.
And I have another question over here. How large should data sets be for portfolio projects? Are there any rules regarding that? I would argue the data set can be as small as you want it to be. It depends on how interesting the story you tell around that data is. I would assume your data set's not particularly large, right? Like maybe less than 5,000 rows for when you
start. Yeah. So it's actually really interesting. It's only based on what Whole Foods chooses to put on sale. So when I just queried your Whole Food store, it was only about 900 items, which is pretty small. I've queried a lot of stores, testing this and stuff, and it's usually around the 1,100, 1,200 to 1,400 range. Like sometimes in New York, it'll be like 1,500 to 1,700. But anywhere from 900 to 1,700. It's not like, it's more about the content of the project, what you're doing, what you're explaining, your purpose, rather than like I worked on 3 million rows. But I will say for the recommendation system, in order to get those association rules, which I don't even think we've gotten to the recommendation system yet, I took Instacart's data that's public on Kaggle, which has 3 million rows. So for that data set, in order to get association rules for Whole Foods, that was 3 million rows. So yeah, I mean, I guess you can kind of show off to an employer and say, yeah, like I used a data set of 3 million rows, but I would say it's more to that. So I wouldn't really worry too much, but definitely don't have it too short or too small.
Yeah. So I would say, yeah, there are no rules per se. Like Yusuf said, it's the story you tell, it's the content of what you're making that matters. It's like when I started my YouTube channel, right? Like I keep asking you guys, what do you guys think about my production quality? How can I improve it? And then I realize any YouTuber I follow, if you go back to their first videos, Dave 2D being the one exception, production quality always sucked. And it was always the content that people followed first. So I think, just a project lesson and a life lesson is that content eventually wins. Like the quality of the content eventually wins. So keep that in mind, guys.
And another thing is that like I didn't, have the intention of this like to be appreciated by people, and everyone's like, wow, this is the project to be. And I have professors that want me to speak about this project to students, and I'm a student myself. I've just gotten this data science thing, since last summer. And it's just like my intention wasn't to like, I want to have a good project. I want it to be out on a stream. And honestly, I did this because I wanted to. So I think if you really do a project because you want to, and it has to do with a question that you're trying to solve, it will become like this if you do it like that. If that makes any sense. So
And then one more question we have that's kind of interesting. Mel over here asked, what's the best way to practice loops and if statements? I've learned it, but can't replicate it, and my projects at the moment circumvent them. I would normally tell people, like, I don't design my projects to practice very specific skills within Python.
yeah,
I will design them to, for example, practice Python. Like I'm going to code something up in Python with this project. Um, but I don't know if you can design a project specifically to use a for loop. Usually it just comes up in
yeah,
practice. And the reason that's important is, at least for me, I don't remember things if I don't apply them in some useful way in my life. It's not just application, it's applying it in some useful way. I don't know, Yusuf, do you have an opinion on this question?
yeah, definitely. I mean, when I was coming into Python, like when I was even coming into this project, like for loops, global variables, like a lot of this, like I wanted to have the data frame once it was finally nice and structured, like saved as a pickle, but I didn't want it to just be saved as any pickle, because obviously when the scrapers ran, I wanted to save the location of the Whole Foods that scraped with the date, so I know that pickle file, like where it came from, as well as the location as a pickle file. So like all these small things that makes me learn about, like, okay, there's pathlib. Like pathlib is a library I have to use. Like a lot of these things, it's like I don't think you should go into it like, okay, like I need to know how to do this and that. Like you should figure out what project you want to do and then take, from the documentation what you need to solve that project. That's what I did. I wasn't necessarily going into it like, oh, like, I have to do all this studying before I do a project like this. Like, no, like you find what you want to do. And then if it turns out, say you look up a Stack Overflow question, or you're on Discord, you're asking, I'm trying to implement this or do this. And they say, oh, for this, you might need a for loop, or for this, you might need a try except block. That's when you use these things. You look at them, you look at the documentation, you see a bit of code that someone did, you edit it a little bit yourself, and then your brain processes that and it reinforces that and you learn it. And then you have that forever now. So I think this is the best way, just starting your project and just starting rather than, overthinking and, trying to, know everything. Yeah, continue. We can continue to look at my project. What do you think, Shashank?
So I think let's go ahead and let's see if anyone has any specific questions about the overview of the project. So we've gone
Yeah,
over
sure.
a couple of sections of the project. We've seen the actual tool itself. We've seen some of the back end code. We've seen the blog post. Do people have any questions about how this project works? What is going on? So we'll give it a minute because there's always a lag with YouTube Live, and see what questions come up with people.
Yep.
Also, so for anyone wondering, I'm using this new thing called StreamYard. Amazing tool. This is the best OBS software I've ever used.
Definitely. And I do want to add, if anybody needs a data set, I know people want to do EDA or anything, this app actually allows you to download the data set that gets cleaned. So if you want a clean, structured data set to do EDA or anything
Right.
else, there is an
Oh,
option to download.
one more thing I think should also be added, right, is that Yusuf is an undergrad student, right? I remember when I was an undergrad student as well. You just have more time in your life as well. I think that's an important, like, kind of for lack of a better term, kind of like a privilege that needs to be acknowledged, to make sure that everyone knows that, hey, like, you may or may not have as much time in your life. So keep that in mind whenever you see projects like this. There is a certain amount of time you may or may not have, depending on where in your life you are, that allows you to do a project like this. And I will say, a project of this level of sophistication is not necessary for a data analyst job. Like that's why I call this the perfect project, right? But you almost never need to be perfect to get what you want in life. So I want to make sure that that's recognized to people. That I remember when I was an undergrad student, I used to do a lot of stuff like this as well. Not with code, but with other stuff. I was a really big political science junkie back in my undergrad years. But I just want to make sure people understand that. Okay, can I do a project like for my For You page? So Asan Shah, could you expand on that for a session? Let's see. That is, okay. Let us see. Okay, we have a couple of questions. Let's see which ones we want to bring up. Let's see what this one says. Okay. Sir, I have a doubt that is development is required for data science projects. So my understanding of your question is you're asking, do you need to know how to develop software for data science projects? And my answer would be for data science, yes. You need to have some very basic software development skills. Like you, at least at Nordstrom, right, the company I work for, the way we structure it out, right, is that data scientists are developing software, but at a really like rudimentary level, which then gets passed off to engineering, where they fix all the code and like turn it into something that's productionalizable. But yeah, I would say a data scientist should have some very basic software engineering experience, which is exactly what Yusuf did over here. He used a bunch of ifs, try except blocks, if then statements, and for loops to create software. So want to make sure that I would say for data science you need to be able to design very basic software.
Yep.
Okay, so Keith has a question over here. So Yusuf, can you see that one over there?
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking at the chat too as well.
Okay, cool, perfect. So I'll let you answer that one.
From Keith, okay, sorry if I missed. Is this connected to a database like MongoDB? Thinking about creating a time series component where you can see the frequency of items on sale and trends. So that's actually a very good question. I didn't actually want to get too deep into it, but I might as well. Deployment was something that I was having issues with. So like on the local environment, when you're making a Streamlit app, a lot of it is like, okay, test code on Jupyter Notebook. Okay, this works. Let me put this on my Python file. And when you put on your Python file and you click save, your local environment, like you'll have Streamlit like on a local host, and like it updates whatever you write in code, it updates on the front end, so you can keep testing back and forth. So a lot of the times, like everything in the local environment just works nice and smooth. But then the hardest part is to actually get everything to work deployed on Streamlit's cloud. So I was having issues with this. But over time, talking to the Streamlit dev team, iteration after iteration, I got everything to work. If I didn't get it to work though, like say there was some issues with like administration privileges, like for example, like I was having an issue putting the NLP model like on their cloud because I obviously I don't have access to any of their cloud, but I do have access at the same time. Any issues I would have deployed on maybe like Azure or something like that. But I just want to make sure is this connected to a database? No, it's not connected to a database. My bad. I thought you were talking about hosting. Like, how is it hosted?
Actually, we do have a question on how you deployed it. So Streamlit Share.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could explain that to them, and I have something to add after you're done.
Yeah, sure. So Streamlit Share is pretty much a platform that lets you take, the Streamlit app that you create on your local environment, and they let you deploy it for free.
On the web, on the open web.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just as simple as that. They let you deploy it on their site, hosted for free. And that's pretty much it. Like depending on like how many users, if you want to put like a bunch of users, you want it to be like an actual platform that's used like commercially. I think at that point, they have packages and memberships. But for the most part, I would say that Streamlit is a very good program, good app. And they recently got bought out by Snowflake. So I mean, they're growing and they're expanding, and they're doing really well. And it's allowing me to make great projects, allowing me to talk to you guys to make your own projects using it. So I think it's a great platform, definitely.
Streamlit's amazing. Yeah, we use it at Nordstrom too. It's
really
easily. Oh yeah, it's easily one of my favorite tools. It's because we were thinking about using Dash, right? And I don't, Dash is a great tool. It is it gives you very granular control of your UI. But the flip side of that is that you have to control everything in order to like make apps work well. Streamlit is a lot more Pythonic. So you learn Python. So whenever you hear the word Pythonic, guys, it basically means like follows the standard conventions of Python. The thing is, taking a step back, right, is that Python is at least one of the most popular languages in the world. I don't know if it's the most popular, but it's one of them for sure. And it's gaining in popularity. And a lot of that just has to do with the fact that it's super simple to learn. And so because of that, in order to gain adoption of tools that people build in other languages, they create these things called Python wrappers, which is basically, your base project is written in C++, and then you wrap it around with a bunch of Python that you can use to interact with the different features. So for example, TensorFlow is written in C++, I believe, not in Python, but you only interact with it in Python. Basically, no one interacts with it in C++. And so because of that, a lot of projects, actually TensorFlow version 1, are not Pythonic because the developers that create it will copy the conventions of the language that they made it in. So knowing like if you know Python, you can figure it out, but it doesn't make any sense. You're like, it's kind of like, it's like speaking English in a really, really different accent. Like if you ever spoken to, I don't know, I feel like I'd offend someone if I said I couldn't understand a certain accent, but there are certain accents in the United Kingdom which I have a very difficult time understanding. It's kind of like that, right? Like I can obviously understand them, but there is like a gap over there. So, and there was one more thing I was going to say. Oh, yes. Yusuf mentioned something really cool about talking to the dev team at Streamlit. I think that's a great piece of advice, cloaked as a story, where there is more help out there than you believe there to be. And these people like Streamlit and everything, they want their tool to be adopted. So, they're going to be very helpful.
Definitely. I was actually thinking about that earlier today. I really didn't want to forget. I was like, I hope I can remember to talk about networking on his stream today. But gladly you brought it up. Networking is going to be the key about a lot of things. I'm obviously in marketing. Obviously have that business background. Um, Mostly introverted, which is very ironic. But like, you have to learn how to network and actually see if there's someone who can actually provide you value, before you kind of seek value from them. Maybe see like what is valuable that I can offer, so it's like a fair, equal trade, and it's like something that continue on, where it's benefiting both parties necessarily, because a lot of people have issues networking and having a hard time kind of making those connections and being able to um, connect with other people. So I think most of the thing with that is to kind of just like break it down and think about it, before you go out to network, and then have a purpose to actually network and build. Because without networking, for example, no one would have known about this project. I mean, at first, I didn't really want to share it, but I mean, I think it's good for the community. It's good for people, and it benefits me because I get to speak about it. Practice my speaking, practice communication, and then I think it's also good for people like Shashank, people like the audience, anybody else who's going to be watching this stream later. I think it's just going to be beneficial from all aspects, and a lot of this, is pillarized from, um, you know, networking. So.
All right, so we will answer one more question in relation to the project and kind of like close up, right? So the question from Uzo Dinma over here is: Can you just start and end a project SQL? How would you present a project with SQL to an employer? I actually don't really know the answer to this question. I get this question quite often, and I think it's a fair question. I really have no ideas in relation to SQL projects. I don't know about maybe you might have an idea.
Yeah. My thing is, do you want to start a project with SQL? Is there a problem that you want to solve where it's like, oh, like SQL, this is what I need for this? Or is it more of, you know, I need projects to check off so I can get a job. Let me just use SQL because it's like pretty easy. I have to think like, which one of those is it? If you really want to use a project with SQL, you can. I mean, you can make a project with pretty much anything. In terms of presenting it, I mean, you can almost make like a PowerPoint presentation. You could like make like a PDF and upload it on GitHub. You could upload. I know you can save SQL code from SQL Server and other programs and save it as like a file. You can upload that to a repository. There's many ways, but I mean, I think actually like thinking about it before doing it, and making sure that you have valid reasons to why you're doing it, is going to help you before you actually put in and take in that time, to go through with something like that.
All right, so we are probably going to end it off over there. I will give it a quick minute to see if there's just another relevant question. Thank you so much, Yusuf, for your time coming on here. I'm going to link the project in the description below. It's already in the chat. I just can't edit the video right now for some reason. But yeah, I think that's about it. So we should be good to go. So thank you so much for your time, Yusuf. If you guys have any questions or concerns, let's see what this is. Oh, one more. This is an interesting one. Okay. So just received $80,000 for a level 2 supply chain analyst position. Is this a good offer? I would say, okay, take what I say with a bit of a grain of salt. I started off in 2018. Like I started working in like 2017, 2018. The economy was very different back then. I don't know if 80K is great or not anymore at the entry level or at the level 2 because of inflation and stuff. Maybe it actually isn't as good. That sounds really good to me. But yeah, if anyone else has any comments, feel free to let them know. Also, rate and subscribe. You have to provide context as to where you live. 80K doesn't mean much in New York City versus in Dallas, Texas. That's a very solid salary. But yeah.
Someone asked a question, where can I get in touch? I think if you just search my name on LinkedIn, you should be able to find me.
Oh, so you have to, what is your name? Like your last name?
Sultan. Yeah. I could put in a link.
Yeah.
If anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot me a question. Another thing I would like to add, a lot of this was with the help of, again, Learn AI Together. Great Discord. I mean, people just help for free. You ask anything. I'm having an issue with this ML problem, this analytics problem, statistics. I mean, these guys, they've been in the game for 10, 15 plus years. And even some people doing PhD research in that Discord, they're just always kind enough to share information. So I do really want to thank them as well. But yeah, the link. Right.
Here's one more question. So it's from Maury, who says how he interacted with the communities.
Yeah, so interacting with the community, I mean, lots of looking up. I've always been on Discord, so going to Discord again, like Learn AI Together has been a great help. The Python Discord, obviously, because I use Python. There's a lot of. I remember when you spoke on a couple videos back where you kind of talked about, the news websites that you look at that have to do with data science. Do you remember what I'm talking about, Shashank? Like you look at some posts, like some kind of like Washington Post, but it's more for data. Like it tells you like the updated things happening in the data science space. So you're kind of familiar.
No, I know what you're talking about. I'll have to.
That was a very valuable video. So I remember writing some of those down. And then there's another one, which is like, if you're just curious about data like me, I think there's a YouTuber where he always tells people to hold their papers. He's like, all right, guys, like hold your papers because today NVIDIA came out with something mind-blowing. And he pretty much just goes over, he goes over a research paper. So I love watching him. I mean, that's not necessary for like jobs and stuff. That's more of like a passion thing. Because it's not like I'm implementing any of those research papers. But I think just getting your foot in, like just try anything, like search things on Google. Google is pretty much the main reason I'm able to do any of this. But yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so let's see if there is anything else over here. Let's see. No. Would it be possible to find companies locally to get data sets? Yeah, just send out some emails. You'd be surprised how much like people can respond to you, just sending emails out. The Discord, I'll try and find some links to these Discords and put them in the description in like an hour or two. And then one question, what is a real-time project in your plan? I want to learn more data. Real-time data and working on real-time data, stock data. If you can get some good stock data, that's easy real-time data. Here's some great advice to everyone. If you really have no idea what to do as a project, go find some stock data. There are an infinite number of ways to slice that data. Basically, every analysis of stock data that can be done has been done. So there's a lot of great people to there's a lot of great shoulders that you can stand on. Mm-hmm. So I think if you want something really concrete to start on, stock data is not a bad idea to start.
Definitely. Actually, in my Python course, one of the first things he taught us was stock data, actually, which is interesting. So I think it's a great way to get your foot in to really start manipulating live data. But I mean, if stock data bores you, I would also say, what do you do that's outside of work or tech or analytics or anything? Like, when it's time for you to have free time, what do you do? So whatever that is that you do, you should take that and try to find a problem that analytics can kind of mingle with that. And I think you'll be able to figure it out from there. For me, it was the Whole Foods thing.
Exactly.
And body fat percentage. I have another project for body fat percentage.
There you go. All right, guys. So I do have to head out. I have a meeting in a minute. But thank you so much, Yusuf, for coming on. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was a lot of fun. I'm going to be doing more of these live streams. I finally got off my lazy button, decided to find people that I can bring into the live stream. But I think that this was a great deviation from the normal format that I do. So thank you so much for joining. And thank you so much for Yusuf for coming online as well.
Yep, it's a pleasure.
All right. See you guys.